I'd like to share something with you guys. I found this on the internet, and I thought this was really interesting. It's about online vendors surveillance, and they actually have this program at the FDA. It's on their FDA website, and they used to do this a lot. I mean, they still do it now with combusted cigarettes. Um, but they also have been doing this with e-cigarette companies or e-cigarette vendors as well online. And it's called Content Analysis of Age Verification Purchase and Delivery Methods of Internet E-Cigarette Vendors. Now, of course, it's 2013, 2014, but I'm sure they have updated this and hugely, I mean, just huge, um, in the year 2016, 2017, especially after the FDA final rule came out in May of 2016, but this was dated May 10th of 2017, this particular report. So I'm sure they have much more updated information than what they're sharing with us in this particular article, but I want to share this with you a little bit. So the objective was to identify the population of internet e-cigarette vendors and conduct content analyses of their age verification purchase and delivery methods in 2013-2014. And like I said, I'm sure they're doing it now. I'm sure they did it for 2015, 2016, and I'm sure they're in the process of 2017 as well if they're doing this stuff. And the methods were, we used multiple sources to identify internet, what IEV means is internet e-cigarette vendors, websites, primarily complex search algorithms scanning more than 180 million websites. In 2013, we manually screened 32,446 websites, identifying 980 IEVs, selecting the 281 most popular for content analysis. This methodology yielded 31,239 websites for screening in 2014, identifying 3,096 IEVs with 283 selected for content analysis. So they brought all of these particular 30,000 of them in, but they targeted, like in 2014, they targeted 283 online e-cigarette vendors, and in 2013 they targeted 281 for, and they don't say who. It could be anyone. It could be Vape NW, Vapor DNA, Vapor Beast, all your favorite ones. It could be e-ciggity. It could be anyone that they're targeting. So anyway, just go through this just a little bit. It says youth access is a critical concern with online e-cigarette sales. A recent content analysis of 57 IEV websites found that 37, 64.9% vendors use some form of age verification, with 35 relying on self-verification such as a checkbox, and 2 vendors requesting the buyer's date of birth, yet apparently failing to verify it with public records databases. Now, the way the FDA final rule reads is that you have to have an age verification process, but it doesn't specify exactly what it ought to be. Okay, so it varies accordingly. Like, for instance, a perfect example, Giant Vapes. I've been with Giant Vapes for over 3 years, and even after May 10th of 2016, with the FDA final rule going into the Federal Register, and actually kick into place on August 8th of 2016. Now, of course, they know me, so it's different. Okay, I don't know how they treat new consumers that come to Giant Vapes, but all they expect from me is for me to click a checkbox. That's all I have to do, is click the little checkbox and, to verify my age. Now, of course, I've been with them for a very long time, so probably they know me. But I don't know how it is with a new consumer. I can't really tell. Um, but it says 64.9% of them, and out of that, 35 out of 37 vendors just allowed to check a box. They didn't. Now, of course, this is before the FDA final rule became effective. Okay, this was back in 2015. But this goes on a lot of websites that I've come to. There's a lot of websites out there that just ask for you to click a box. Now, there are some websites that you go to, like I go to eSig Express for my flavorings. And there, even though I have had an account with them for, I don't know, about a couple of years, about a year and a half, 2 years, every single time they still have to verify my age, and they go through a whole process. Actually, you click, you put the whole your name, you put your date of birth, all that crap in there, and then it'll spin, so to speak. There will be a little thing spin on your screen saying it's checking your age verification, whatever process it's going through, and then it approves you. So there are places that online that actually do go through a process that goes through a database, like a public records database, like what they're talking about in here, to make sure that you're above at least 18 years of age, or in California, at least 21 years of age. I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's about 30 pages long, but I just want to get to certain areas in here. This is rather interesting. It says, in the future, FDA regulations affecting online sales may specify minimum standards for age verification practices and may further restrict online sales using the model that the federal government used to restrict hard-to-target online vendors of cigarettes by using elements of our quarantine of unhealthy internet trade framework to interrupt the business between internet cigarette vendors and the companies with which they need to do business to complete their sales, their payment processors, and shipping companies. Use of credit cards or PayPal for buying cigarettes online and use of UPS, FedEx, and DHL for deliveries has been banned under voluntary agreements with the government since 2005. Now, this comes in regards to combusted cigarettes, okay? So let me just read a little bit more. The Prevent All Cigarette Trafficking Act, and I actually spoke about this in another video, reinforced the shipping bans and added United States Postal Service to the list of banned shippers in 2009. It also required age verification with government records databases at the point of order and with photo ID at delivery. The FDA may follow a similar approach with new regulations or potentially expand the aforementioned policies to include e-cigarettes. Now, they may wind up doing this eventually. That it would be very, very difficult to buy online. I mean, you could do it definitely face-to-face. I mean, if you visit your vape shop, they're going to ask for your ID. That's easy to verify. But online, it's a little bit more difficult. Some, like I say, some websites do actually comply, make it harder for someone to buy something. But there are a lot of websites out there that you don't really have to do much. And like it says in here, they're going to wind up cracking down eventually. The FDA will eventually because the FDA final rule is a foundational rule, they can add to it. So, or even a draft guidance, though that's not binding. It is not binding, but still, they can amend that FDA final rule and say, this is the type of age verification that every online vendor will have to apply, according to like what they do with combusted cigarettes. This whole quarantine of unhealthy internet trade framework that actually interrupts any kind of combusted cigarettes that are sold online to the consumer. It stops it in its prints. Well, they may very well apply that to internet sales when it comes to e-cigarettes. Surveillance of the internet e-cigarette marketplace is crucial to informing FDA e-cigarette regulation enforcement actions. An analysis of IEV websites will help inform regulatory action by expanding existing surveillance research with new data and a substantially larger sample size than any previous study of online e-cigarette sales. Will also provide a baseline of IEV practices before federal regulation with which to compare data currently being collected about vendor practices after FDA regulations take effect, which of course May 10th of 2016, when the Federal Register, the FDA final rule became effective on August 8th, 2016. And then go through a little bit more there. I'm not going to read this whole thing. It goes on for a while. But I'm sure they're going to make it much harder as time goes by. They're going to treat e-cigarettes sales online just like they do combusted cigarettes. And if the vendor does not comply, they can close down the entire website. And then they go through the system of how you do it. But there's a point I want to make here. So there's another list that I want to get to eventually. So they measures, it says, we collected descriptive demographic data across all sites, details of age warnings and age verification strategies employed, and payment methods accepted and delivery methods offered. So they have in their database, now of course this was a 2013, 2014, 2015 study here, or the methods that they applied, it was back in those, but I'm sure now in 2017 they even ramped it up even more. But they are definitely, and like I said, on the FDA website, they actually have this whole thing called surveillance, and they actually have a program which I'm sure they work hand in hand with these particular individuals, and you'll see it in a moment. It's actually the National Cancer Institute that conducted this whole study here. I'm sure they work hand in hand with them now. But they understand everything. They understand the age verification. They do the payment methods. They are watching all of this very, very closely, observing it all. Believe me, payment methods accepted, delivery methods offered, and all this. They are watching it. Every sale that's online with e-cigarettes through their the algorithms. I'm sure they have it all figured out. It's just a question of enforcing. The FDA actually enforcing any vendors that have broken any laws. I mean, you go to Vapor DNA is a perfect example. They have a slew of manufactured finished product dates, products after August 8, 2016. Now, I'm sure the FDA is aware of that. They just haven't enforced that yet, or even given them a warning letter. Now, I receive periodically, like once a week, I'll receive from the FDA in an email, I'll receive all the vendors that have received warning letters, let alone any enforcement action, but mainly warning letters. And so far, Vapor DNA has not popped up in any of those warning letters. So, but they certainly can give the Vapor DNA a warning letter, and they're not the only vendors. There's plenty of them out there. But it's just a question of when the FDA will actually take action. I'm sure they're aware of Vapor DNA. They just haven't taken any action yet. But anyway, this one area, this is the area I want to get to. It's really interesting. How they break it all down. They have broken this whole thing down. And like I said, I'm sure it's more advanced now in the year 2017. So this is the stuff they check. Age warning on homepage. No attempts to verify age at all. Uses only age verification strategies that cannot effectively verify age. Age verification strategies that cannot effectively verify age. User clicks checkbox button. Submitting order certifies age. Accepts only credit card payments. Age verification strategies that could potentially verify age. Date of birth only. Date of birth less rigorous strategy. Date of birth more rigorous strategy. Claims to use online age verification service. Site claims age verified at delivery. Sending a copy of driver license. Entering driver license number. Social security number. Call customer service. Challenge question. So all the methods that can be applied when a consumer buys from an online vapor company. And the many online vendors that I have gone to, the majority of them are just check a box, and then the next I don't know, on the priority list is they ask for your date of birth, and that's about it. Or you might have like, you underage 18 or over age 18. Click on that, and you're allowed in. That's pretty much. And like I said, eventually they're going to crack down on this crap. You watch. Don't think they're not aware of any of what's going on in the internet. People think, like you always hear Sup My Mod, Matt always saying, how are they going to stop it? How are they going to, they're never going to stop it. Well, believe me, I'm sure that every transaction that Matt made online, they have it in some database. And I'm not excluded from this either. I'm sure every consumer is gobbled up in this database in one form or another. And it's probably tracked to your IP, your internet protocol address. So they can track it to your IP, or they could track it to maybe some kind of other trace, maybe maybe your name, or maybe your payment method, or the time and date and all this. I'm sure they have a huge database of every consumer that has bought from a vaping vendor online since at least since 2013. But I'm sure even now it's even more massive. So when you buy a manufacturer finished product date on Vapor DNA's website that has a manufacturer finished product date after August 8, 2016, all of those transactions are being tabulated. The chances of them coming after the individual consumer, they could, but they probably won't. But they certainly can close down the Vapor DNA, at least give them a warning letter, and then close them entirely down. They could just close them right down, wipe out their entire website if the FDA wanted to. They certainly have the power to do so, because I would say the majority of their vapor products have a manufactured finished product date after August 8, 2016. So most of their inventory online would be wiped out. Certainly have the power to do it now. It's just the FDA has yet to do anything. But it's just a question of time. It's a question of pick and choose, and the FDA eventually will enforce these particular measures and knock out these websites one by one. You watch, eventually they will do this. And then they have it all broken down on methods of payment: credit card, PayPal, money order, certified check, cashier's check, bank transfer, personal check, e-check, cash on delivery, Western Union, Skrill, whatever that is, Bitcoin, SagePay, MoneyGram, other. Then they got the methods of delivery: USPS, UPS, FedEx, DHL, pickup from vendor, courier, other, and then not specified. So they have this stuff broken down. They know exactly where these packages are going to, too. Like it says, just because they have not knocked on your front door, especially the vendors that are out there, doesn't mean they don't know what's going on. Believe me, they know what's going on. They just haven't acted on it yet. They have this stuff. And this is, 2013, 2014 technology because they applied it already in the combusted cigarette with the combusted cigarette vendors over the years. So they've been doing this with e-cigarettes since 2013. So I'm sure in 2017 they got this thing all figured out. Well, that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you. I don't really need to go through too much. But when I saw that list of how they broke it down, they know. I mean, every transaction I've made since 2013 is in one of these databases that they have. Every single one. And that includes everyone else as well, including Matt from Sup My Mod. So it doesn't even, the irony of it all is when you really think about it, Matt always talking about how they're going to stop all these imports at the Custom Borders Protection Services, right? Well, they don't really even have to. All they have to do is close down these websites that are under surveillance. All right, that's all they'd have to do. They'd have to. I'm sure they could figure in some kind of algorithm that they can. Even let's say you go to FastTech or eFun or 3F Vape or Heaven's Gifts or what else is out there, SourceMore or whatever. You go to these particular websites, and I'm sure they could put something in that software that will not prevent any American from buying from these particular vendors overseas. I'm sure they have that technology to do that. It just literally stops it from happening, that transaction. Let's say if you pay with PayPal or you pay with a credit card. I'm sure the FDA certainly has the power to do this, by the way, to tell MasterCard, to tell Visa, to tell American Express, to tell Bitcoin, or tell, I don't know, all these methods that they spoke about here, all this stuff, credit card, PayPal, bank transfers, eCheck, Western Union, Bitcoin, SagePay, MoneyGram. I'm sure they have the power to actually stop that transaction if the address is the consumer address is located in the United States. I'm sure they could stop that transaction right there, regardless if let's say I'll pick on FastTech. Regardless if FastTech figures out a way to get a backdoor into the whole system, so an American consumer can still purchase from FastTech, right? But all the FDA has to do is actually go to MasterCard, American Express, Visa and all this, right? And literally, when you enter your, let's say your Visa credit card number or whatever it may be, right? And it, it doesn't say it, but that credit card number belongs to an American. The transaction will not go through. I mean, I'm sure they have that technology. I'm absolutely sure of that. I'm sure of it. So they have this all figured out. It's just a question of enforcement. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's all it comes down to. And right now, all they have been doing with the vaping industry is giving warning letters. They have given warning letters out already for adulterated e-liquid and for selling e-liquid or vapor products to minors. They have done that since August 8, 2016. But all this other stuff, like on Vapor DNA with manufacturer finished product dates that are after August 8th of 2016, I'm telling you, they have the power to shut that transaction down if they wanted to, or close the entire website down on the Vapor DNA or any of them. Literally, tell them to take that. They could in the warning letter. First, they'll give a warning letter. What the warning letter will say is, you no longer. Let's say they're talking to Vapor DNA. Your company can no longer sell any products that have a manufactured finished product date after August 8, 2008, August 8th, 2016. Okay? And let's say they continue to do it anyway. Then they get enforcement. Then what the FDA will do is literally close the entire website right down. It'll be the end right there. And then civilly They can, civil penalties as well, even possible criminal prosecution, but probably civil penalties. But they'll close the entire website down, right? I mean, then the Vapor DNA would have to find another website provider to provide their website or whatever, how it works, right? A host, that is, whatever. And if the FDA finds them doing it again, then it can turn into a criminal prosecution. But the thing is, they can close Vapor DNA down. Let's say they don't take off those manufactured finished product date products after August 8, 2016 off of their website after they get a warning letter. FDA will close that website of Vapor DNA or any of them right down. They have the power to do that. Or the website that, I don't know what Vapor DNA uses, the website they use, but they all have. I mean, I never had a website, so I don't really know exactly how it goes. But like for instance, like GoDaddy, right? There's a GoDaddy, so they provide websites for you to have, so you can get an IP and all this for your website and all this other stuff, or however that works. I don't know much about all that stuff. But anyway, let's say, for instance, hypothetically, let's say Vapor DNA has GoDaddy, right? So all the FDA has to say to GoDaddy is say, close down this website, meaning Vapor DNA, and GoDaddy, by law, would have to do so. And that'd be the end of Vapor DNA. So when you start typing in Vapor DNA in your Google and it doesn't come up, well, you'll know that they were forced to close. Or they no longer have new products after August 8, 2016 with manufactured finished product dates after August 8, 2016, then you know they definitely got a warning letter from the FDA. Anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to speak to. But they have it all figured out. Like here, they have it broken down to, this is 2013 yet, right? They have it down to 97.2% accepted credit cards and 23.1% accepted PayPal in 2013. They have it broken down. They have it all figured out. And they could trace it with your IP address. They could trace it with your credit card number. I'm sure they have access to this, because this is a legal matter with the FDA. And the FDA, through a court order, can get access to anybody's, or even generally, don't even have you. I mean, everyone knows about the NSA, right? They do it all the time, right? They just gather all the crap up, regardless if they're targeting a person for a specific investigation or not. They just gobble up all the information. Well, the FDA can do the same thing. They can just gobble up all the information, no matter who visits Vapor DNA or VapeNW or VaporBeast or FastTech or wherever you go to, gobble up all that information and then decide which one's to target. They even have it with the Native American reservations. They even have them as well. It says, unlike the early years of the internet cigarette sales, that's combusted cigarettes industry, where more than half of vendors were located on Native American reservations, very few IEVs were affiliated with the Native American tribe. Now, it does affect the FDA final rule. I spoke about this in another video. I also put on Make It Right series. Mike Vapes always had this thought that, well, we can just go to the Indian reservations and buy our vapor products. We'll be okay. No, that's not the way it works. The Native American or the Indian tribes, their reservations are not off the hook because of the compacts/treaties that they have with the federal government, let alone state governments. I mean, there's a lot of states, like here in Oklahoma, when the state raises the tax on cigarettes, it actually affects the tax on Indian reservation taxes as well, because of the compact. That's COMPACT. Those compacts that they have between the Indian tribes and the state of Oklahoma. And then I just want to see here. The funding of this was done by, this study was funded by grant, and they give a grant number from the National Cancer Institute. So the National Cancer Institute works with the FDA on this, and they do all this stuff here. Very interesting. Of course, the irony of it all is that grant is actually taxpayer money. So we're actually funding the National Cancer Institute for them to spy on us as consumers. So much irony in the federal government. It's funny as heck. You have to understand, this is 2013, 2014 technology. Can you imagine what they have in 2017? Jesus. Believe me, every single transaction that Matt from Suck My Mod has done on the internet, believe me, every single one they are aware of. It's just a question of them enforcing it, or especially any websites he goes to. Mike Vapes, all them, Heavy Metal Vapor, all the big shots, right? ST Vapes, who else? Even Mark Fagan. I love Mark Fagan, but even him, he's not off the hook either. And same with me, I'm not off the hook either. Every single one, Rip Trippers, Indoor Smokers, I'm sure they, oh man, can you imagine the database information that they have on Indoor Smokers and Rip Trippers? Holy crap. The crap that goes through the mails just to them is all catalogized. Is that such a word? You know, it's all cataloged. On Indoor Smokers, they think, hey, I'm getting all these products, but meanwhile, I'm telling you, they're you know, they fill out the forms on how many packages he gets, where they come from, what date, what time, and they could do some X-rays on them at the Custom Borders Patrol, Custom Border Protection Patrol Services. They could do scans on it and see exactly what's in the package, and then write it down on as part of the file that they are having. You know, you heard, you know, in the 60s, 50s, 40s, everybody heard about the McCarthyism, right? How about Martin Luther King? How about Malcolm X, Abby Hoffman, Weather Underground? Who else? All these guys. You don't have to be essentially a criminal. I mean, I always considered Martin Luther King not a criminal, but because he spoke up against the war, they started putting a file on him through the FBI. Well, the FDA has files too. And then you have these, the National Cancer Institute, through a grant from the federal government, is doing all these studies and compilation in these databases as well. I mean, you hear it all the time about the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the ATF, all these characters. What's the other one? The Department of Defense, not Department of Defense, although they do that too, but the what is that? The Defense Intelligence Secretary or something. They have a new, you know, Homeland Security, all these characters. They compile all this information. And I'm sure if some of that information that has to do with manufactured finished product dates after August 8, 2016 pops up on a Homeland Security screen on a monitor, I'm sure it's referred to the FDA for their own database, for their own catalog, for their own file. So I'm sure they have files. Let it clear here. So it moved. There you go. I'm sure they have files not only on Indoor Smokers, Rip Trippers, they have some file on me on everything that I've ordered. I'm not off the hook either. Thank goodness I haven't gotten anything with a manufactured finished product date after August 8, 2016. But I know Rip Trippers, Indoor Smokers, Suck My Mod, all these characters have. Okay, I'm not just picking on them. And there's a file on each one of those. And I'm sure that, you know, we only know Rip Trippers or Indoor Smokers by Indoor Smokers. I mean, I know his first name, Chris. Rip Trippers, what's his first name? I can't remember. I, I mean, I was aware of it one time, but I can't remember it. But anyway, or Matt from Suck My Mod. But I'm sure that in the file, it actually, because it'll say it on the package that's mailed to them, it'll not only say their address, but also say their name. So I'm sure they have Chris's last name, Rip Tripper's last name, my last name, everyone's last name, the full name, everything. And then they look that up in the other databases that they have, and they can put up a whole history on what packages you have had coming to your address for some time, especially even, everything has especially USPS. USPS has these tracking numbers. I mean, they come to your residence with your name, with date, time, what type of package, whatever, maybe even what's in it. So some packages have, especially coming from being imported from China, they have a number on there that actually identifies what is inside of the package. And I'm sure when the USPS guy scans it, it can, I mean, I don't know, but I'm sure if they wanted to, it can go straight into the FDA database as well. So don't think that they're not looking, they're not observing, they're not surveillance, they're not watching us. Believe me, they are watching us. They're watching every single transaction that is being made on the internet. Everyone. And it's not just vapor products, it's all products. But right now we're under the gun with the FDA, so to speak, and they are definitely observing every single solitary transaction that you're making on the internet. It's going through the mails, how you pay for it. So like some people like you hear from Matt, like, how are they going to find out? Believe me, they found out already. It's just they haven't done anything with that information. That's all that is. FDA hasn't acted on the information. They know exactly what Matt's been getting in the mail, along with indoor smokers and Rip Trippers and all these characters, including myself. I'm not excluded, of course. But Suck My Mod, Matt makes it appear like, hey, how are they ever going to find out? No, they know already. They just haven't acted on that information. Anyway, I just wanted to share this with you. I thought it was an interesting piece, and you guys have a good one. Bye.